In the previous movie, I showed you how to consolidate your iTunes library by going to File, Library, and Organize Library. And in here, checking the Consolidate Files option. Another option you'll find in here is Upgrade to iTunes Media Organization. If you did a fresh or clean install of iTunes 9, this option might be grayed out with the message that your media is already organized as an iTunes Media folder. Well, first of all, what's an iTunes Media folder? Glad you asked. We've looked at the folder structure of how iTunes keeps your media organized, but let's take another look. On a Mac, you navigate to your Home folder, into Music, into iTunes Music, and in here you'll find all of your iTunes media, including not only music, but you'll also find folders containing your movies, TV shows, podcasts, and so on. Now these are all primarily music artist folders that you're seeing here, but we do have a folder in here called Movies, and if I look in here, here are the 2 movies that I've dragged into iTunes in this chapter. So basically all the non-music files are inside this folder called Movies that's inside this folder called iTunes Music. If you're on Windows, this folder structure is organized exactly the same way. Now, iTunes has no problem keeping organized with this folder structure, but for people who occasionally brave the trip into their iTunes Music folder, it's not the easiest place to navigate and find files in. So for iTunes 9, Apple came out with a new folder structure to organize your iTunes content. It doesn't do anything particularly special, it's just a new structure for this version of iTunes. And the best way to see this new structure is to just run the update. So let's go ahead and, back in iTunes, check Upgrade to iTunes Media Organization, and click OK. Now, I only have a small library of content, but when upgrading a larger library, you may see a progress bar appear. But let's see what's happened here. Go back to the Finder. And again, I'll go into Music, iTunes. Now, I still have an iTunes Music folder, but instead of all the music files appearing right in here, notice we now have a Music folder, a Movies folder, a Ringtones folder, mobile applications, and so on. Exactly what you see in here depends on what kind of content you had in your library. For example, you might also see an audiobooks folder. You might not see a ringtones folder if you haven't downloaded any custom ringtones for your iPhone. Notice that the automatically add to iTunes folder we talked about earlier has also been moved out of the main iTunes Music folder and is now sitting outside this music folder. You should not notice any change in the way iTunes operates, but this is the current folder structure for iTunes 9, and you might as well upgrade to it. And again, it does make it a little easier to browse and navigate through your files if you like to do so outside of iTunes. Now, if I wanted to find those movies I imported earlier, I just need to look inside the Movies folder, and there we have a folder called Rocks and Southern Utah, and they're all organized in here. Just don't go moving things around inside this folder. You can drag out copies of files if you want to, or attach them to emails, but don't change the structure here or iTunes may lose track of your files. If you do want to make any changes to the files themselves, maybe changing the name of a song or a movie, make sure you do it through iTunes.